engagement culture. I'm Kashish, your host for today's evening. And before we actually start off with the webinar, I would like to give a little bit of background about what we are going to discuss in today's webinar. So, today, in an era of heightened corporate transparency, greater workforce mobility, and severe skill shortages, culture, engagement, and retention have emerged as top issues for business leaders. These issues are not simply an HR problem. Given the harsh spotlight of this new transparency in organization culture can become a key competitive advantage or an Achilles heel. Culture and engagement are now business issues, not just topics for HR to debate. And there's no place for organization to hide these issues anymore. Culture and engagement is no longer an arcane topic owned by HR. It is now an imperative for every leader and every executive in the organization. Many studies that I've gone through now show that highly engaged companies can hire more easily, deliver stronger customer service, have the lowest turnover rates, and be more profitable over a long run. At the same time, culture and engagement is the most important issue companies face around the world. 87% of the organizations cite culture and engagement as some of their top challenges, and 50% call the problem as very important. Given these facts and figures, we decided to take up this topic for today's webinar. So currently we have Mr. MMH Baig, who is the head of human resources of Bharti Foundation, which is a philanthropic arm of Bharti Group. He has overall 20 years of experience. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to him on this platform. Welcome, sir.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. And thank you very much, Veer, and thank you very much, Kashish, for giving me this opportunity to conduct this webinar for this elite group of HR professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to have you on this platform with us, and we feel lucky and privileged to be able to get some knowledge and some insights from you. So we'll go ahead and start the formal session now with a brief introduction about the core HRIR group, and we'll start off with a small presentation. As we go through, we'll talk about the issues that are being faced, especially around building the high engagement culture. So now we have the presentation here with us formally. So essentially, the core HRIR group is a group of 350 more plus professionals, which has been formed with CHROs and leading HR minds and HR leaders from Fortune 500 companies across India as well as international locations. The vision of the group is to be an internationally renowned group which is focused on futuristic HR strategies, advances, learnings, etc., etc. It is basically a professional platform to share the learning, skills, and leadership, basically for knowledge sharing. Since we have such a vast experience of professionals with us, we have the privilege of getting to know what is happening in what industry, any initiatives that the HR professionals take up within their organization, so on and so forth. One of the initiatives of Core HRIR group is the Learning Weekend series, through which we conduct through our webinars. Another session that we realized that since we are most of us are centered in Delhi NCR, we should go ahead and have conferences, on a smaller platform maybe, that have conferences which will encourage meeting professionals and people from the same industry, same function, and exchange ideas, create a platform for awards, create a platform for exchanging knowledge, and creating network within the city or within the Delhi NCR region. We also have started off with a job board wherein we would be sharing the career opportunities for, by, and of the HR fraternity. And then we would have a platform wherein we'll be sharing the main HR news, which is our WhatsApp group, and we very regularly share the latest updates, any debates that are going on, any latest new research and development and or HR strategies that have entered in the market. Apart from that, we also started off with a Shining HR Award, which is essentially a recognition platform for people who are able to, for people who have less than 10 years of experience and who have made significant contribution in a particular sphere. So for today's Learning Weekend, which is essentially series three, a part of the Learning Weekend series. As I said earlier, we have with us Mr. MMH Beg. We'll go ahead and start off with a brief introduction for Mr. Beg. He has more than 20 years of rich and varied experience in human resources function. He expertises in strategic as well as operational HR. So he's essentially worked across every sphere or every subdomain within the HR function. The significant contributions in for him include the HR policies, processes, performance management system, training and development, talent acquisition, compensation management, reward recognition, and employee engagement. Uh, yes, of course, he's also worked on employee relations and statutory compliances. He's built strong teams and delivered complex projects by his motivational skills, leadership capabilities, and strong collaboration. The domains that he's worked across are is consumer durables, automotive tires, and CSR. The companies that he's worked on with are Sucom Power Systems, Electrolux, and Apollo Tires. As far as hobbies are concerned, he loves gardening. He is able to dedicate some time daily to his passion of or his hobby of gardening. He's essentially a philanthropist by nature, and that is the reason he's been with the current company, Hardy Foundation, for almost 10 years now. So I hope I have been able to do some justice to Mr. Beg's vast experience of within the HR function. A little bit about myself. I have 13 plus years of experience in a generalist HR domain. I have worked across mature as well as startup organizations. Overall focus includes talent management, acquisition, retention, development, performance management, so on and so forth. I would not like to spend too much time about on myself, and we straight away, for the benefit of the attendees, start off with the formal webinar session, and I think I would straight away like to jump on to why some of the topics are really some of these subtopics are really important when we speak about building high engagement culture. So, sir, I would like to bring up some of the main queries clouding the minds of professionals today. I think the first one would be how is employee engagement is often wrongly assumed to be a coalition of fun activities, games, parties, etc. What, as for you, is the true essence of employee engagement?
So, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction of introduction. And I think I am not very sure whether I deserve that kind of introduction or not, but still let me try my best to put my experience, my learning, and share it with all of you. So before I come to the topic of employee engagement, you probably may be seeing on your screen that there is a screenshot of LinkedIn. And around 6 months back, I was doing an interview for one of my team members only, and it was a core HRBP role. I asked the candidate, in fact, besides other questions, what the candidate means about employee engagement, and you have very rightly said that the candidate also started saying we do fun activities, we celebrate birthdays, we do some festival activities, we celebrate Diwali, Holi, etc., etc. And then I was kind of shocked with the answer that how grossly misunderstood that concept was. So I posted my thoughts on LinkedIn and got very positive response, and a lot of people, close to 300, they commented on that post, and so that enlightened me further on my knowledge of employee engagement. So employee engagement, if we had to talk about, it's a very holistic term. It cannot be seen merely in terms of satisfaction at workplace or a sense of well-being. It's about vigor, it's about dedication, it about absorption. So what I mean by vigor is, people are displaying high level of energy. People are putting in all of their effort into their work. They are willing to go that extra mile. So that is what imply engagement is.
Sir, can we're not able to see the PPT, so if you could please do Control F, if you could click F5, and the presentation would be full screen.
Presentation is not coming on a screen.
So it is not coming full screen. If you could click F5,
F5 done.
yes, F5. So it should come full screen then.
Is it there now?
So we can carry on further. It is not still full screen.
In fact, this is actually in presentation mode. And
So it is,
so should I carry
uh,
on?
so it's not in presentation mode. We need to click the presentation button on the right hand side, the bottom corner. There
Yes,
is,
it's there. It's there in that. Is in the presentation mode only.
okay, fine, sir. We can proceed.
On
Thank
my
you, sir.
screen, it is in presentation mode only.
Right, sir. Sure.
But here I can. Yes, it seems it's not on full screen. And so I was talking about vigor, and then it's dedication, which means the people feel that there is a sense of involvement with the work and have a sense of pride with their work. It's and then absorption, which is completely engaged in the work. So these are the things which actually make engagement, and there are various things which actually leads to engagement. So engagement is a holistic term. It should be seen very holistically. It's a broad term. It's not merely a feeling of satisfaction and commitment. It should be understood in terms of commitment. It should be understood in terms of willingness. It should be understood in terms of going that extra mile to do some. To, it is a kind of, I would say, antithesis of burnout.
Right, sir. So I think the next question, or one of the next queries that surrounds most of our minds is generally in the business environment, it is a leader's primary responsibility to drive high engagement. How can a leader create a healthy organization that drives maximum engagement and results?
So leadership in the organization is has to walk the talk. Everything has a cascading effect. If the leadership is focused on engagement, everyone else will be, and there are various things that the top leadership, the senior leadership should do in order to build engagement, or rather high engagement or high engaged workplace or high engaged implies. It all starts with building credibility. When people feel that leadership, people are confident about the leadership, they feel more engaged. uh, and to build that credibility, the people should feel okay, the leadership is capable and competent enough to drive the business. In terms of building the capability of the leadership has to be transparent. The leadership has to be very fair. The leadership has to show a sense of commitment to organizational goals and objectives. then the leadership has to listen to the employees. Unless they feel the pulse of the people who are there at workplace, who are there at shop floor, who are there in the field, who are there in far remote areas, they have to listen to the people. And if people feel that they are being listened by the top leadership, they build that confidence in the leadership, and that results in engagement. Once, and not only listening, but people should start, not people rather, I'm sorry, but the leadership start connecting with the people. Unless they connect, people will not have that confidence in the leadership. And there can be various measures to connect with the leadership. They can visit the work sites, they can visit the various workplaces or off-site project locations. They can visit the people in the field, meet the people, understand their pulse, connect with them, may spend some time with them, have meeting with them. Maybe, some of the companies, the top leadership kind of has, they have a practice of having monthly lunch, etc., with the people. So they have to connect with the people. And then they have another role of the leadership in terms of engagement. They have to bring in clarity on organizational visions and organizational goals. If the goals are cleared, unless the goals are clear, people will not feel connected.
Right, sir.
People should be connected with the vision, the purpose, the mission of the organization, and it's all about the leadership. So just let me add one example. So there is an organization by the name of NetApp, and his vice chairman every week writes email to 30, 40 people, and these people who have done something different for the organization. So that is how the leadership in various organizations tries to build, listen to employees, and connect with employees.
Right, sir. So, generally, the value of true engaged workforce speaks for itself. So, engaged employees perform and stay with the companies longer. It is believed that they're more productive and create a better customer experience. And millennials are the least engaged generation at work, and they will occupy the largest space in future workforce as we see the numbers today and the way they are projected for future. And how can the business leaders actually create a future safe engagement plans or culture? I mean, we're talking about a future safe strategy. So, what would be the future safe strategy?
So yes, millennials today occupy a very large workforce in any organization, and they are different from people of our generation. Millennials mostly are, they have born and brought up in an environment of abundance, and during their rearing and while they grow up, most of their basic needs are met. So millennials, we have to understand their mindset, and we have to deal with differently, because anything that works for other set of people probably will not work for the millennials. So millennials look for a purpose in their role. They should be able to feel that their role contributes to the larger cause of the organization. Their role causes is contributing to the larger cause of society.
Mhm.
They should have a kind of collaborating working environment that can be provided to them through various technology forums or social media or technology. Millennials are the people who look forward to a flexible working environment. They may like to work from home on their laptop. They may like to come late to the office, sit late in the. They may not like to bind themselves in a 9 to 6 kind of a routine. And any organization which would like to win the talent war, so they have to retain the millennials in the organization. So let me give one example what Mars Food Corporation does to engage their millennials or the young people in the organization. They have a kind of practice which is called reverse mentorship. So millennials are mostly familiar with gadgets, with technology, with various social media platforms and their usage, and so they are attached with the senior management people, and so they kind of train and they acquaint and they familiarize them with these gadgets, these technologies, the social media. So that is how the millennials can be given a sense of purpose and they can be engaged.
Right, sir. So, I've seen some studies on the workforce 2000, I mean, workforce 2017 and some employee engagement reports. So, one of the studies that I went through is Gallup State of the Workforce 2017. So, that report indicates that only 30% of the employees are feeling engaged at their jobs, and companies are spending more and more on engagement, but engagement still is at an all-time low. So how can companies keep employees engaged without spending a fortune?
Yes. So as far as the link between money and engagement is concerned, so it is often said that there is no money which can be paid to an employee to ensure that he likes his job. So though money has its important role, and various compensation and benefit and the way it is designed may help in engaging people, but most of the time money may not be the only thing which can drive. So there can be various things at workplace which can lead to a high level of engagement. So for example, if create an environment at workplace which is caring, an environment which gives empowerment to people, where people feel free to work, people are given independent to innovate, to design new ways of working, where people feel that everything is fair, there is no favoritism being played, there is no politics at workplace, there is an impartiality, they feel supported, they are communicated, they are informed about what is happening in the organization, what is the organization's future plan, how we are achieving our goals and objectives. They feel that the organization has an understanding and its own status in the society, in the market, in the business world. They feel that their job con- is making a larger difference to the society. They get a respectful treatment. So these things actually contribute towards their higher level of engagement, which has actually been validated by various studies, whether it is Gallup, whether it is Great Place to Work, whether it is HAIT, whether it is Mercer. So they all come up with these non-financial interventions which can lead to high level of engagement. Of course there cannot be one size fit to all kind of a solution that you do all these things and the people are highly engaged. So it varies from culture to country to country, and for example, something else will engage or motivate the people in Australia, whereas it may or may not be able to engage or motivate the people in India. So we have to identify these factors. There are various factors, but broadly, the work itself which engages, if the work is challenging, if the work is purposeful, and if the leadership generates and creates a sense of confidence in them, then you have reward and recognition, which can be non-financial and organizational communication. So these are some of the things which cuts across various countries, various cultures, various organizations, and contributes to us high level of engagement. But
Right, sir.
yes, some of the things like if you have to develop the skill set, develop the learning level, the knowledge of the people, some amount of money has to be invested, but not necessarily that the engagement will go up only when there is an investment of money. But yes, some investment has to be made.
Right, sir. So one of the, again, the same Gallup studies. It said that managers account for 70% of the variation in employee engagement. That is the kind of impact that the managers have. So, real time coaching from a manager is one of the most effective approaches for fostering employee engagement. How can an organization fine tune the managers to be sensitive to building the engagement culture and ensure that the managers are themselves not exhausted in the process? So, what we're trying to understand here is how do we polish and train the managers so that they also do not feel stressed out, but at the same time, they're able to contribute to engaging the employees who are working with them.
See, employee engagement is a very holistic thing, and it's not that only the leadership drives it, or the only the manager drives it, or the only the HR drives it. So there has to be a collaboration between everyone in the organization to drive the engagement. And of course, the manager plays a very critical and crucial role in driving the engagement, because he's the person who is on daily basis most of the time interacting with his team. And it is often said that people don't leave organization, they leave their managers. And this I have been hearing for last 15-20 years, and I think is correct also, that people most of the time don't leave the organization, they leave their managers. And so manager can do a lot of things to increase the level of engagement, starting from utilizing the full potential of an employee, and giving him a job and giving him a responsibility and a project which suits his competence. If his competence is not being properly used, so probably the employee or the team member will feel disengaged, and we may lose. Then the manager is supposed to empower his team members. He should actually not get into micromanagement,
Mhm.
getting into every details, getting into unnecessarily something the hand holding kind of thing which is not required. He has to be authentic. He has to show his human values, human face. He has to play a very critical role in his career development. He has to identify his areas of strength, and he has to work on fine tuning it. He has to, and take up the role of a coach, a mentor. He has to identify areas of improvement, work on that, advise him, guide him. He has to come up with rewarding him and appreciating him for the good job that he does. He has to again he has to create visibility for his team members, because being at the center of something is very highly engaging thing for an individual, or for a team. So that the manager should create an opportunity and should continuously and constantly work on identifying those opportunities where he can showcase his employee and his achievement, his team member and his achievement, his team and his achievement. And of course, he can certainly be his guide, his coach, his mentor. And that is how a manager can increase the level of engagement.
Right, sir. So now coming to the role of HR professionals. So we all have a critical role of collaborating, planning, and executing the culture building exercises. How do we ensure that we play our role very well and weave a strong culture fabric? We have to be very responsible for building this entire culture of high engagement. So how do we do it?
So, HR, of course, has a very critical role, and we have to play a very critical role in building culture. And what I often say, that HR is like salt in food. It may not be visible, but it is very difficult to say where it should be, where it shouldn't be. So in appropriate quantity, that the salt has to be present in food everywhere, be it vegetable, be it rice, be it dal, be it roti, everywhere. So similarly, HR plays a role in engagement, like anything in the organization, has a very critical role to play. HR has to, so HR first should know uh, that what is the level of engagement in any organization at a given point of time, because engagement is not something which is constant always. It may be high at one point in time, and because of some other factor it may go down at some other time. So constantly HR has to measure, HR has to design a long term strategy, because engagement is not you do this today and the engagement goes up, and then you are not doing anything and the engagement remains at a higher level. So it's a constant effort. HR has to build in, bring in, and the leadership into it, and has to get the support from the top leadership. Unless the top supports the engagement or engagement initiative, engagement strategy, most of the time it doesn't work. Employee input, talking to employees, which is again in terms of surveys, in terms of meeting individual employees, in terms of meeting people periodically in town halls or some other gathering. And then HR has to link the engagement strategy with business results, how any engagement initiative will positively contribute towards business results. So HR, we say, takes care of an employee from warm to tom. So HR has to start the engagement from day one, and it is to ensure that there are various things, culture and initiatives and policies in place which keeps the employee engaged till the end. So the whole strategy of HR should start from hiring the right talent. As we know, it is often said that hire for attitude and train for skill. So HR should ensure that the people who are being hired in the organization are the right cultural fit. Because if someone lacks in skill, someone lacks in knowledge, that can be given over a period of time, but it is very difficult to change the attitude of a person or to convert that person into who lives and breathes the culture of the organization. Then the engagement should start from day one. The people, how the people are welcomed in the organization on day one, because that first interaction, that first impression lasts for a very long time. So there has to be a proper orientation, onboarding, induction process in place, which should be well structured, which should flow smoothly. There can be buddies that can be assigned, so that over a period of time the employee feels comfortable. Because day one or day two, 1 day or 2 day or 3 day orientation program doesn't pass on everything to a new employee, and then over a period of time, next 15 20 days, 1 month, he struggles for lot many things. So he can be assigned a buddy who can help him. Then HR, then there are various things in between, like we have a PMS system. HR should ensure that it is robust, it is objective, it is there is it is objective, it is fair, it is transparent, is serving the purpose what it should serve. Then there are various reward, there will be various recognition mechanism that HR has to bring in place, financial, non-financial, all kind of thing. Then comes separation, and separation is again a very important juncture where HR can still HR should not leave the employee helpless. HR should be there with the employee who is leaving the organization, because if the exit is made smooth, the employee goes as a brand ambassador of the organization. In future, the employee can come back to the organization with more experience, better skill set. He can be a vendor for the organization, he can be a client of the organization. So HR has to play its role at every stage in the entire life cycle of an employee in the organization, be it hiring, be it PMS, be it training, be it reward recognition, be it career and succession planning, etc., till the employee leaves the organization.
Right, sir. I totally agree with you on those parameters and those insights. We do have we have had a lot of people attending this webinar, and people have been listening to us, and they have certain questions. So I'll be taking on these questions from the attendees now. So, what are the key metrics of engagement culture? What is the process to map the employee impact of employee engagement initiatives taken by the organization? So, essentially, the query is if the human resources team is taking these initiatives of building up the engagement culture, then how do they measure the effectiveness of the engagement culture?
Come again, please. I missed you in between. So just last two, three sentences. What exactly is the query?
Yes, sir. So I was saying that what are the metrics through which the employees can, so the HR can go ahead and measure the employee engagement effectiveness? What are the metrics? What are the areas that the HR team can go ahead and measure the employee engagement effectiveness? How do they gauge how much of changes that they have been able to bring about?
So HR can use various metrics to measure the benefit of engagement. So first, the level of engagement itself. So on year to year basis, when we do the engagement surveys, so there will be a trust index or satisfaction index, whatever the various other organization will say. So that will vary from X to Y or X to Z. So that is one thing. That is about engagement level. So now there can be various matrices, and by various studies by Gallup, by various studies by Mercer and Great Place to Work, etc., etc. They say at an engaged workplace, the productivity, the profitability, the customer satisfaction level are always higher in comparison to the organization where the workforce or the workplace is less engaged. Even engagement leads to a very high retention level. Some of the studies, conducted by uh, Gallup itself, it says, the median differences in top quartile of engagement survey and the bottom quartile of the organization. So the median difference between the organization which are there in the top quartile and the organization which are there at the lower quartile. So there's a huge difference in terms of productivity. So there is a difference of 21% in productivity, top quartile and bottom quartile organization. There's a difference of 41% in terms of quality of the product. So which actually essentially means the defects. There will there it has been found that there is a 22% gap between top and bottom quartile in terms of profitability, 10% in terms of customer satisfaction, 25% in terms of turnover and retention. And then even it goes beyond that, and it creates shareholder value also. And studies have proved that there has been a 300% the organization at the top quartile, they outperform the standard share market by 300%. So some of these things are in fact the matrices which can be actually measured before uh, initiating the engagement and after implementing the engagement initiative. So HR must have metrics for these things. These are the business case, and unless we in HR are able to prove these things, the management, the top leadership will not accept. So we have to build these matrices. We have to build this business case of engagement, and these are some of the things that can be built in. There can be lot many other things. It has linkages to absenteeism also. It has linkages to theft and fraud and pilferage also.
Right, sir. So I think one of the questions that has come up from several attendees is, when your organization is spread across multi-location. You have strategic business units. You have headquarters at some place, and you have multiple offices across different locations. So how do you effectively do an employee engagement across the organization in such situation?
So we have the same situation. In fact, so we have two people working in Meghalaya and Shillong, two people working in Assam, two three people working in Telangana, two three people working in some remote area of Rajasthan. So that certainly bring in uh, some challenge in building and keeping the people engaged. So one of the things that initially I have said that people should we should always feel connected. So one thing would be at some periodic level, someone from head office, HR people, or maybe someone from the top leadership should be frequently visiting these areas, meeting these people, understanding their issues, grievances, and resolving is bringing in you know. Uh, places specific policies in place. For example, that recently we have faced that a local conveyance or local travel policy which works in Delhi doesn't work in Meghalaya, doesn't work in Kashmir, doesn't work in Leh and Ladakh, where we have operations and we have one or two people. So we have to customize these things to meet their requirement. We have to constantly keep connected with them as and when we get opportunity to in one particular area. If not one area, then two three four people we should actually get together, meet, understand their issues, and passing on anything and everything that is available for people at other locations or maybe at HO locations or at a bigger location should be passed on to these people also. And thankfully in today's technology we can actually do a Skype or a hangout or WhatsApp call with these people. So the key would be keep them connected with these offsite people, and where the number of people is less. So that is one thing that can be done on regular basis to keep these people connected with the organization, and that is what we do. In fact, we have a kind of calendar that on this day the HR head will speak to these four people in Telangana for an hour or for an hour and a half. On this day, the HR will speak to people in these two, three people in Shillong, Assam, Meghalaya. So that is how we try, and then we try, a get together kind of all the people at one place every 6 months, wherein these people feel connected with the larger organization, with the larger cause for which the organization stands.
Right. So, sir, one of the questions that has come across is about generation gap. So, how to bridge the generation gap amongst the workforce where there is a huge gap between managers and the frontline staff, which is essentially millennials. So, how do you bridge this gap and ensure that all levels of the employees are engaged? Are you able to hear me, sir? Hello? I think we have some connectivity issues. Please bear with us. We will be back shortly. Just
Work? Yes, I am back. Right. Hello.
so we had accidentally dropped off.
Extremely sorry for this inconvenience to all of you. Deeply
So
regret.
so we're back here now, and Sir was actually talking about the bridging the generation gap about and being able to judge the employee engagement effectiveness across the different generations at workplace?
So, in fact, millennials we have covered that they need to be treated differently, and when you do the employment engagement surveys, and when you analyze the results, so you will find you also analyze the results on depending on location, depending on the grade of the employee, the level of the employee, and you also gender, and you also analyze the results of your surveys basis age. So at times you will and at most of the times, this is my experience, it seems that on some of the parameters, the people in the higher age group are low on some parameters, whereas the people on in the lower age bracket, they will be high in terms of their score on those parameters. So like I have initially said, one size fits all doesn't work for all, and I have not very extensively studied in terms of designing different strategies for different age people, different generation. But yes, people like if I have to say so, people in older generation, people in my generation, they are more connected with, they are more engaged. If they feel that the job is secured, they would look for long term benefits rather than short term benefits. Whereas the new generation, because people in higher older generation, they would think, okay, we will retire, and then after retire I will have retiring fund, and with the retiring fund I will have these things. After retirement I will enjoy the life. So they will be looking forward to something which helps them, which prepares them for long term benefits. Whereas the people of younger generation, they want quick results. So they should have a car, they should have a house at the beginning of the career. So this is how actually we can design different strategies to different people. For example, 15 years back, around in one of my previous organizations, there used to be superannuation policy, wherein certain amount was being deposited for the people, and they were eligible to withdraw this amount only at the time of superannuation or retirement. So when 15 years back, 17 years back, the new generation people started coming in, they started questioning this policy. We don't need it, we need cash in hand, we have to do a lot of things right now rather than waiting till retirement. So this is how it can be handled, the generation gap in terms of engagement.
Right, sir. So we have one question which is being asked by one of our attendees, Amit Sharma, and he says, shouldn't matrices like attrition percentage and engagement scores be a part of balanced scorecard for all functional leaders and not just HR leaders?
It should be. It should be. So I fully agree with the question. It's a wonderful question, and I would say the role of every manager is to develop his people. The role of every manager to ensure that their team members are highly engaged, and the role of every line manager or every other manager is to ensure that the people are contributing uh, towards the towards achieving the organization goals and objectives. So there are practices in various organizations, which is one of the practices we also do, and we every year we identify and we reward one person as the best team manager, and employee engagement score is one of the parameter for identifying and selecting that best people manager. Sorry, best people manager, we call it the best people manager. So employee engagement score is there, and I fully agree, employee engagement is not a standalone thing which HR does. it should be a collective responsibility of everyone in the organization who matters, be it top leadership, be it the middle management, be it the line managers, people manager, HR. They all have to contribute. And if we miss on any of these fronts, probably we will not lead to anywhere. If middle managers or every other functional heads, whatever we call them, or the various senior leadership members, they feel like doing employee engagement, HR doesn't want to do it, so it will fail. If HR wants to do it, they don't want to do it, they will fail. And unless it is made in a balanced scorecard, putting it some weightage in the balanced scorecard system will help. But actually, unless it comes something from within, it will not help. So that kind of a culture and that kind of culture has to be built in the organization where everybody thinks in terms of engagement, and it should not only be linked with business, balance scorecard. It should be directly linked with the business strategy and the business goal of the organization, and it should be made a thing which everyone lives and breathes.
Right, sir. Another question from Deepak, sir, Mr. Deepak K. Sharma. How an engaged employee is an emotional investment, and why employees feel to be engaged in an organization?
Why an engaged employee is an
So, how is an engaged employee an emotional investment with the organization, and why should employee feel to be engaged in the organization?
last sentence, ma'am, not able to hear you properly.
Okay, so why should an employee feel or need to be engaged in the organization? That is the
Why an employee should be
engaged. Why should an employee feel that he's engaged in the organization?
why should an employee be engaged in the organization?
Yes, sir.
So have I got it correct? Why an employee should be engaged in the organization?
Yes, I mean, why should the employee feel to be engaged in the organization? I mean, is it really important for the employee to feel as if he's engaged in the organization?
I'm not getting it. Can you type it here so that I can read it properly?
Okay, so I think we will take up the first question. So, how does an engaged employee is an engaged employee an emotional invested one in the organization? So, if I'm engaged as an engaged employee in the organization, then am I also investing emotionally in the organization? Am I emotionally connected to the organization?
Okay. At times, what we need to understand in HR, that at times there will be symptoms of an employee that will look like that he's engaged, and those engagement level of that employee will get reflected that he is in terms of he's getting engaged his work, he's giving good results, he's putting in extra hours as and when required, and he's willing to do go that extra mile. But this may not necessarily be because of engagement. That may be because of various other reasons that employee may feel that it is his duty, and so he has to perform his job. He has to perform his job and leave the organization. So the employee has to be emotionally engaged. Very correct. And if you take the engagement, so the engagement is of course engagement. The behavioral scientists have tried to understand engagement from psychological point of view, and they said engagements are at various level, and there are trait engagements, there are behavioral engagements, and an employee has to be emotionally engaged. Emotion is I feel a very important factor in every thing, because these film stars or these cricketers, why they earn so much money? They earn so much money because they play with our emotions. Our emotions are attached with them. When we watch a movie, we feel that we are in that role. Similarly, we get emotionally attached with our cricketers. So emotion, the employee has to be emotionally attached. I
Right.
think I have have been able to correctly understand the question and answer.
Yes, sir. So I'm just going on to the last question of today's webinar. And the next question is just one second. There's another question that is coming up. So, how do we really improve the engagement? I mean, what are the key practices for building engaging culture at an organization?
There are various. There are various actually. There can't be one. There can be a long list of engagement uh, practices which happen in an organization. For example, communication. So there can be various things on communication. What we do very every 6 months we do a town hall where the top leadership listens to the people, and whatever they ask, they answer their questions in terms of organization's plan. We kind of do skip level meetings, wherein skip level meeting would mean the reviewer directly talks to the person, so bypassing the manager, tries to understand his challenges, tries to give solution to his challenges and his issues. And then of course, if the leadership is credible, the leadership is playing uh, role and giving a confidence to the people, I think there can be various hundred activities that can be in terms of that can be built in recruitment, that can be built in our PMS practices, that can be built in our communication strategy, that can be built in our RNR. So RNR plays a very important role. So simply there can be an RNR practices. Then RNR practices can again be an immediate RNR and reward and recognition. There can be reward and recognition which are periodic and over a period of time. And so a lot of things. I think if one thing that I would like to share here is. Bharti Foundation for last 2 consecutive years has been identified as the great place to work and also among top 100. So they circulate a mail every day and wherein they highlight one practice of one organization. So need be, I will start sharing this in the group so everybody will get benefited. So there will be a practice from say Ujjivan Finance, wherein the CEO every month addresses the employee, all the employees, sends a mail to all the employees every month, wherein they are microfinance company and they finance to people to generate employment in rural areas. So uh, they he shares how life of a rural poor person has been transformed with the help of Ujjivan Finance. So there is a story of recruitment, how they recruit the Dabbawalas in Mumbai. There are various organizations that I have shared. One of the practices of this Mars food. Then there is another practice in terms of various organizations. So I will share it. So there will be hundreds of, and I'll start sharing it on the group. So that it benefits all from tomorrow onwards.
Sure, sir. That'll be really nice of
So,
you.
so I think the question was on best practices, right?
Yes, sir, it was. It was
Right.
indeed. So, thank you so very much for your time. And I think I would also like to thank the attendees. And before we just close for the day, I would like to just sum up our learnings from today. So, what we have understood is that the organizations that create a culture which is defined by meaningful work, deep employee engagement, their job roles, the organizational fit, and strong leadership. So, everything combined together. Such organizations are really they would outperform their peers and will likely be the winners in the competition in attracting the top talent, if I may say so. And these days, it is the glass door era where every corporate decision is kind of immediately publicly exposed, debated. You would see a lot of reviews of the organization, of the HR team, or how the management is of a particular organization. So in today's Glassdoor era, it is very, very important for the companies to build up a high engagement culture. And once these issues are these issues are posted online for every employee and every potential employee to read, the organization's culture is more or less kind of sealed. So it is very important for companies to build a very strong organization culture, a culture of engagement, a culture of openness, a culture of feedback, and it should be open for everyone to see. And I'm sure from this discussion that we had today, we have gained different insights and ways to foster positive engagement in such a disruptive world, which we know as the VUCA world. So thank you so much, sir, for
So would
sharing your.
like to add one sentence here, if you allow
Absolutely,
me.
absolutely, please.
I hope I have been able to do justice with the topic. And since this was my first webinar, I would look forward to feedback from all of you who have attended this seminar, webinar rather.
Right, sir. So we would
And
be
that certainly
sharing.
will help me to improve for doing such sessions next time.
Absolutely, sir. We will go ahead and share the feedback form post this webinar. And I would request all the attendees who have been patient in listening to us to fill out the feedback and help us improve the forthcoming sessions, help us understand what are the areas that you're looking at, help us understand what are the issues or what are the topics that we can take up in our future sessions, any technical improvisations that we need to do, any behavioral or the changes in the flow of the webinar that you would like to see. So thank you so much for that point, sir. You've actually reminded me for sharing this, and I'm sure the attendees will be able to further go ahead and delve deeper into this topic of today, which was building high engagement culture, and they would be able to make some difference in their current organizations. So thank you everyone for sparing your valuable weekend time. I hope we were able to match some of the expectations that you had from us. So we will be sharing the summary of this webinar in the group for everyone's benefit. And as a note of thanks, I would like to thank the core HRIR team, which is led by Veer, comprises of Bhanu, Jyoti, Kirti, and Anu. So thanks for their support, their constant motivation, and for their confidence which they have in me. And I would also like to thank Bake Sir, especially, as I said, and a lot of other people who were behind the scenes and helped us make this webinar successful. So thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a nice Sunday and have a great weekend ahead. Good night.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night, sir. Thank you.